Good morning. We're going to be talking a little bit about setting reed gap and in the specific something called metal memory that will affect what happens. Now, reed gap, of course, affects the air tightness of the harp, and the farther that the reed is off the reed plate, the more they leak when you play them, because air rushes around the side. So a lot of players bring them down pretty tight, but you can't take them too tight, because then the reed won't fire. So that's where you got to hit it. And it's important, because if you want your harp to be air tightened, I just air tightened this Seidel Deluxe steel, and brought them tighter. But when I was doing the setting of the reed gap, and I use a dental tool, one of these, and then I will press down the reed to reset it, usually in this area right here, not anywhere near its tip, and not anywhere near the base, but right in this segment here, as I will reset by tapping down and pushing. And if I'm trying to lift one, a lot of times I will use an industrial razor blade, because I can very easily get that under the very end of the reed. But once you set them where you want them, and of course, as you know, the reeds you see on top, those are all the draw reeds. And the ones with the wind savers are the blow reeds, because the blow reed wind savers need a lot of work sometimes, so they put them on the outside so it's easy to work on them. So the reeds you can see here are the draw reeds. But once you set that reed gap, the reed won't stay in that position, because metal has a memory. And it will tend to, like if you bring it down to be tighter to the reed plate, this is the reed plate, and you bring it down, it's going to come up just a little hair, a little tiny bit. It's interesting that I use the word hair, because it's not much. It does spring back just a little bit to where it was. So it's very common that someone will send a harp for setting of reed gap to a top, customizer, and when it's sent back, the player will play it, and some of the reeds aren't firing, and the customizer will say, well, I didn't have a chance to test it the second day. So you got to let a harp sit after you do reed gap adjustment and make sure it's still correct. So that was something that I didn't know that you knew about, that it's not like you move these metal pieces to a position and they stay there. They don't. They kind of stay there, but they'll go back to where they were just a little bit. What does that mean? That means that when I'm setting reed gap, if I were tightening the reed gap in a reed like this one, and I took it down and it was just a hair too tight and slightly choking, I'll probably leave it, because I know in 10 hours it's going to open up, and it will. Now the shorter reeds don't do that so much, because they're very short. And you're not going to notice it much there, but you're going to see it in the lower notes. But I thought this was something that maybe you didn't know about, and now you know the kind of tools I use. This is a dentist tool, because it's very precise as I'm pressing down and moving that reed. And I only put pressure on smack in the middle of the reed and down. I'm not going to be working on the edge, or I would get into this sector, so I'm not going to twist the metal. So you want to, when you're setting a reed gap, you want to hit the reed towards the center of the reed. You don't want to, twist it in any way. You get very, very gentle work with those reeds. It's got to be very carefully done, or you can bust them, mess them up, take them out of position. So it's got to be very careful on your alignment as you're doing it. Any harp can be improved by setting the reed gap as a rule, and they're usually not perfect from factory unless it's a custom harp.